Welcome to this presentation on wall construction and attachment methods. Architectural construction methods are varied, ranging from the most basic post and lintel construction to more complex parabolic arches and Gothic arches supported by flying buttresses. But the four most common types of construction we'll encounter these days are concrete block and drywall, brick, lath, and plaster, timber frame, and stick frame. It's important to understand each type of construction method so that we can choose the appropriate attachment methods. Let's start with concrete block. Concrete block construction is essentially a mass type of structure. The concrete blocks are built up with mortar in between the blocks. We can see from this diagram here that thin furring strips are often attached to the concrete block, and then the drywall is attached to those strips, allowing for air circulation. While we may be able to use attachment hardware that's suitable for drywall, most of the time we need to pick hardware that works well in concrete. Brick structures, like concrete block, are mass structures, and we can see the vertical furring strips attached to the inside of the wall. The lath are the thin horizontal strips that are attached to the furring strip with small gaps in between, as we can see in this photograph as well. Plaster is then applied to the lath. It penetrates the grooves in between and creates a stable, smooth, continuous surface. Plaster has a very different quality than drywall, and specific fasteners need to be used. Timber frame homes are complete structures made of heavy timber vertical posts supporting horizontal beams. Other members, such as knee braces and struts, which are the diagonal elements, help provide support to the frame. The space between the posts and beams are occupied by structural insulated panels. You can screw directly into these panels, so no specific fastener is required. And finally, stick frame construction uses smaller dimensional lumber that is readily available. Because the material is smaller, load-bearing walls must be incorporated into the design to support the structure, as well as diagonal bracing. While several layers are added to the outside of stick frame construction to protect from the elements, there is typically insulation in the interior area and then drywall added to the inside surface and attached to the frames themselves. Let's start by looking at how we attach to drywall. I've got a sample here of drywall that's attached to a frame that simulates stick frame construction. The studs on stick frames are typically 16 inches apart on their centers. So the cleat that I have attached on the front can be attached directly into one of the studs, which is ideal, but the other screw is going to have to go into the drywall. This is what we use for attaching into drywall. These anchors are screwed into the drywall first. You'll see that they have a pointed end and coarse threads, so it allows them to be driven in easily and held in place. And then there's also something called a toggle bolt, which is also used for attachment to drywall and is a bit stronger. It comes apart into two pieces, and you'll see shortly why that is. So we start by drilling a 1/4 inch hole for the anchors. The anchor should be snug, and we drive it in with a Phillips head screwdriver until it's tight. But don't use too much force as it could strip. The screw goes through the object we want to attach. We align it with the hole in the anchor and drive the screw in until it's snug. This is a view of what it looks like from the back. With the toggle bolt, we have to drill a bigger hole because the toggle on the end is a little bit larger than an anchor, and it needs to fit all the way through. So I'm going to start by taking the bolt apart from the toggle clip, sliding the bolt through the piece that I want to attach to the wall, and then threading it through the clip at the end. Once I've done that, I can fold the toggle clip back and push it through the hole. So let's go to the other side and see what that looks like. So the toggle clip just flips open, and I've pulled it back so that it's tight to the back of the drywall. You can see I've had to pull the piece I'm trying to attach to the wall back as well. If I don't do that, the toggle clip just spins around. So I need to have it tight up against the back of the drywall as I'm driving the bolt through to get a nice snug fit. And we'll just take a look at what that looks like from the back. You can see I've pulled it back and the toggle clip stays in its position and the bolt comes through. These are plastic wall anchors. They come in different sizes and they're appropriate to use for plaster lath, concrete, or masonry. The screw drives in and splits the plastic plug, as you can see in this diagram, creating a wedge and holding the fastener in place. It's the same principle for a lag shield. It takes a larger bolt. It's a more heavy-duty application. Tack-on screws are manufactured with special threads that will thread into a pre-drilled hole in materials like concrete, concrete block, and brick. There's no plug that is needed. These screws embed into the material by tapping the threads through the material surrounding the hole, much like how we tapped metal in the metal tapping demonstration. When drilling into concrete or brick, you'll need to use a masonry drill bit. It looks similar to a twist drill bit, but you'll notice a difference at the end where the carbide tip has been brazed on. You'll need to size the hole that you drill very carefully, depending on the fastener that you're using. Slightly too big, the fastener will spin. Slightly too small, it just won't go in. And of course we need to use a hammer drill to drill these holes. It's typically just a setting on a regular drill indicated by the icon of a hammer. I don't find cordless drills very powerful for hammer drilling. I prefer to use a corded drill, and the corded drills will accept the masonry bits that I just showed you, and they require, of course, a chuck key to tighten the bit in place. If you look on the top, there's a button that indicates the drill mode and the hammer drill mode. We also have a hammer drill in our studio that is an Sds Hammer Drill. So that's just a different kind of power transmission. I find them quite a bit more effective than the standard corded hammer drills. Again, there's an option for drilling, hammer drilling, and in this case, a small jackhammer setting. There's the trigger, and there's also a depth adjustment on the top of this hammer drill. So I'm going to go ahead now and drill a hole into concrete block to accept a number 8 blue plastic plug. Okay, so the end of the plug should slip in easily, and you'll feel a bit more resistance as you push it in further, and then just use a mallet to tap it into place so that it is flush with the concrete block. And then, of course, we're going to put a screw through the piece we want to attach to the wall, line up the tip of the screw with the plug, and just tighten the screw up, and there we've got good solid contact to concrete block. And finally, let's take a look at a couple of other simple ways of fastening objects to the wall. This is called a French cleat system. You can see that there are two pieces that have been cut on a 45-degree angle. One's attached to the back of a cabinet or picture. The other's attached to the wall. And we know the fasteners that we can use depending on what kind of wall we're attaching into. So you can see here that I've attached half of this cleat on my sample wall. We know one of those screws went into an anchor and the other went into the stud. Here's the other half of that cleat on a 45-degree angle, and it just drops down. This is called a Zed Clip. It is very similar to the French cleat, works on the same principle, but it's a much lower profile, as is the clip that I'm showing you right now as well. So same idea, interlocking parts. One is attached to the back of the object, one is attached to the wall. And these are called keyhole fasteners. They're attached to the back of the object you're hanging on a wall, and they simply slot down over two protruding round head screws. Here's a small block that I'm attaching to the wall with those Zed clips. Now this Zed clip can be screwed onto the back of the piece that I'm mounting, but it could also be glued on. And that might be really helpful if you were mounting, say, a piece of glass or ceramic that you can't actually screw into. And the piece just slots on over the Zed clip portion that's attached to the wall. And that's it. Thanks for watching.